Israel's military denies its troops shot at civilians after deadly attacks in an aid center in Gaza.
And there it is, the shoe dropping on the other foot. Okay. Gaza officials say dozens killed and injured near the aid hub. Israel's military denies its troops fired at civilians near or within the aid site. This happened at the same time. This happened pretty much around the same time as the Boulder, Colorado attack took place.
Gaza. A warning, the video that you are about to see is graphic. Now, the Palestinian Health Ministry says the death toll in Sunday's shooting incident is now at least 31 Palestinians killed and dozens more injured. Multiple eyewitnesses tell CNN they were fired upon as they were heading towards the aid site in Rafah ahead of its opening. The Palestinian Health Ministry and hospital officials say the Israeli military is responsible for the gunfire. I want to bring in CNN's Jeremy Diamond, who's live for us in Tel Aviv. These are very disturbing images, Jeremy. So what do we know so far?
Well, at this point, eyewitnesses on the ground, Palestinian health officials, doctors at these hospitals, as well as the organization Doctors Without Borders, are all accusing the Israeli military of being responsible for killing at least 31 people in this pre-dawn attack that seems to have happened on a crowd of thousands of Palestinians who were heading to one of these aid distribution sites, hoping to be among the first in line to receive aid from this distribution site in Gaza's southern city of Rafah. The Israeli military is denying that it fired upon civilians, quote, within or near this aid distribution site. But an Israeli military source has acknowledged that the military did fire what they described as warning shots at a group of Palestinians who were about 1 kilometer away from this aid distribution site. And we have now geolocated a video from the scene of this attack as the gunfire was going off around individuals at the Al Alam roundabout, which is located just under 1 kilometer away from that aid distribution site. And so the Israeli military seems to be playing quite a semantics game here, denying on the one hand that there was that they were involved in a shooting within or near an aid distribution site, while also seemingly acknowledging that they did open fire at individuals who were at the location.
Bro, I'm sorry. You will never be able to convince me that this kind of commentary would have existed on mainstream discourse this close to yet another atrocity that Israel has committed. This is what a change of attitude. What a dramatic shift. A shift in discourse so dramatic it gave me fucking whiplash. They're doing the coverage that I've been doing, and even now, like, never to the same degree, but like they're basically doing real coverage over this instead of immediately taking the Israeli position as fact. Where was this post October 7? Wow. If you were in here in the aftermath of October 7 and for an entire year openly stating what Israel is doing is playing semantics games for trying to actively and deliberately misinform the population, wow. In 2024 even, an atrocious event such as this one would be followed by Jake Tapper interviewing some Israeli military official going, no, these were babies of Hamas. They're not even doing the classic Hamas-run health ministry. Incredible.
Of this very same attack. More than 200 casualties have been reported, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, including 31 people who were killed.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health.
This was quite a hectic scene that unfolded over the course of a couple of hours, between the hours of 3 and 5 in the morning, according to eyewitnesses. And we've really heard some very, very disturbing stories from individuals who talked about, crouching down on the ground to try and avoid the bullets. Some people who stood up to try and flee were then shot in the head or in the chest. Other individuals who came to try and rescue the wounded were shot themselves. And in addition to that, the individuals who were finally able to make it to that aid distribution site, some of them arrived to find that there was no aid left at that site. And obviously we know that this is just one of several very dangerous and deadly incidents that have taken place in the vicinity of these Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution sites, which have raised enormous questions about this model of aid distribution and the potential and very real dangers that we are seeing Palestinians face as they try and make it to these sites.
Yeah, I mean, we heard multiple stories. I mean, the United Nations has said that aid is being drip-fed into Gaza. We heard from President Emmanuel Macron that the aid distribution model needs to shift. There's been a lot of criticism. What are humanitarian agencies on the ground saying in terms of the changes that need to occur to make things more efficient and safer?
Well, they have been sounding the alarm on this aid distribution mechanism for weeks now, and those concerns have only grown even more as this aid distribution mechanism has gotten underway over the course of the last week. We have heard from Philippe Lazzarini, the head of UNRWA, which was until not long ago the primary provider of aid in the Gaza Strip. He said that aid distribution has become a death trap. Saying that all of this points to the dangers of this new system. We've also heard from Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, who are saying that this, quote, new system of aid delivery is dehumanizing, dangerous, and severely ineffective. They say that it is resulting in preventable deaths and injuries of civilians. And these are exactly the kinds of warnings that we were hearing from humanitarians.
Bro, sounding like Al Jazeera. Wow, what is happening? Bro sounds like Hamas, dude. What the hell's going on?
In the weeks before this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation launched, they pointed out that whereas their traditional humanitarian aid distribution systems would have hundreds of distribution points across the Gaza Strip, in very close proximity to where people actually live, in this case, what we are seeing is that there are only 4 active distribution sites. Some days there's only 1 site that's open. For example, yesterday there was only that 1 site in the Tal al-Sultan neighborhood of Rafah that was opened. And so you're seeing, huge masses of people having to walk for several kilometers in some cases through these areas that have been designated now as dangerous combat zones by the Israeli military, walking through Israeli military positions. And now, according to eyewitnesses on the ground, as they are trying to make their way to this distribution site yesterday, the Israeli military then opens fire on them. And so it is simply a very dangerous situation on the ground, and that goes beyond the fact that this humanitarian crisis in Gaza, this hunger crisis in Gaza, still has yet to be alleviated by this new aid distribution mechanism.
Perhaps it's yet to be alleviated because Israel created it.
Images out of Gaza this week have been stunning as large crowds of Palestinians starving for food after an 11-week Israeli blockade on aid desperately scramble to grab what they can from the first truckloads that have been allowed to trickle in. It makes one wonder, what is life actually like in Gaza right now? Joining me now is Arwa Damon, who has visited the Strip 4 times since the war began just over 600 days ago. Damon is a former CNN correspondent who pivoted to humanitarian work and founded Inara, a charitable organization that provides medical and mental health services to children impacted by war. Arwa, welcome. So I'm trying to think of what's the best way for you to give us a sense of what life is like in Gaza. And since you work with children, how have they reacted to this unending war?
We've seen different kinds of ways that this sort of, deep, intense trauma manifests in a child. And I think the starkest and best way to describe it is when you meet and see children that have quite literally been shocked into silence. So children go nonverbal. They are unable to process what it is that they're seeing, and coupled with the reality that the security blanket that a child would normally turn to, their parents, for protection, they know that doesn't exist. A child knows their parents cannot keep them safe, cannot feed them, cannot make their pain go away. And so you have these multiple traumas that are constantly hitting them all the time. And then add to that just the daily struggle of trying to stay alive.
So what does Gaza look like when you go in there? What are you seeing?
It feels as if you're sort of in the opening scenes of some sort of bizarre apocalyptic Hollywood zombie movie. But then you realize in the middle of all of this, utterly dystopian scenery, people are actually trying to live in and among the rubble. There's little children who aren't wearing shoes, who are lugging, gallons of water that are heavier than they are. There's this one horrible scene of a father who's trying to push, his son in a wheelchair, and he just completely collapses from exhaustion. You have the elderly that are trying to crawl along because they don't have any other means of transportation. And it is so hard to comprehend how people are actually surviving. And there's one thing, Fareed, that I really wish everybody could see and understand is the level of kindness and compassion and humanity that still exists among so many. It blows my mind. Because, we work in the same shelters over and over again. So the people there, they kind of, they know me and they know when I'm coming back. And the welcome that I get, oh my God, I'm so glad you're safe, which is stunning because,
Israel unironically claims, like many people who are incredibly Nazified in Israeli society, will claim everything she's saying is Pallywood. Everything she's saying is fake, literally.
I've been on the outside. There's a level of kindness and purity that exists to so many people there that I don't think the outside world really understands or appreciates.
There are people who say there is a narrative that, look, it was put out by some Israeli officials at the start of the war. The Gazans voted for Hamas. They support Hamas. They celebrated after October 7th. What's your sense?
So if we look at a poll that was done by the Arab Barometer, actually incidentally just before October 7th, they found that if there in fact had been elections, the Hamas candidate would have gotten less than 25% of the vote. Add to that, Gaza's population is extremely young. So the vast majority of Gazans, more than...
By the way, the one person that's on that poll, one of the people that's on that poll is a prisoner. Like, that's how fucked up the poll is. The number one person, Marwan Barghouti, that a lot of people say is like the Nelson Mandela for Palestine, which Palestine has had hundreds of Nelson Mandelas, by the way. Israel killed all of them. He's in prison. Straight up.
50% were not even born or old enough to vote when Hamas came into power. Let's also remember that before October 7th, twice Gazans tried to rise up against Hamas and were unable to do so. And even if we look at the videos that came out, and I understand, I mean, it horrific. The scenes of, the hostages being pulled into Gaza and people around there celebrating, even if we're generous and say, how many people were in those videos? 5,000, let's call it 10,000, let's even call it 20,000. That's 1% of the population. I have not, in my 4 trips to Gaza, heard a single person support Hamas.
You say that if people knew what was going on, if the press were let in, the Western press were let in, the war would end tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I assume by that you mean that even most Israelis have no idea what is going on in Gaza.
No, and most people, because it is so impossible to describe. I mean, even when you watch it in the videos, even if you're someone who's watching the videos every single day, it's very different when you see it because the camera shoots straight and when you realize it's 360 around you. And add to that, a lot of the narrative, we're targeting Hamas, we're not targeting civilians, Hamas is doing this, Hamas is doing that. When you're on the ground and you're seeing it for yourself, you realize that quite simply, Fareed, is not true. There is nothing about Gaza's landscape that says anything other than this is the annihilation of a population and every single aspect of what is needed to actually keep a people alive.
Arwadim, good to have you on.
Thank you.
This person is still a white lady that was a CNN broadcaster. Like, she is a very nice person. She's a very kind individual. But like, yeah, of course, she's not going to fucking get on CNN and be like, Hamas is awesome. And you're not wrong because like, she's still... The narratives the narratives that you were operating off of, or like your understanding of the situation, a lot of people are only now arriving at. Okay. But the expectation is anyone in the Western world is going to like directly run cover for Hamas. It's fucking insane. It's not going to happen. I mean, think about how angry people get towards someone like myself when I say the truth about which force is a more violent and more devastating figure that directly is responsible for the atrocities that the Palestinians are experiencing. It's obviously Israel. Like, of course, people have disagreements with their own governance. There is plenty of discontent, especially for a government that is under constant siege. Even when I don't fucking defend Hamas, but simply show that Hamas is not even on the same planet as a devastating force such as Israel, the expectation that, like, obviously no one, I don't expect anybody in Western media to fucking openly praise Hamas. Brother, even Hamas officials are demanded condemnations about the actions of Hamas. Like, you literally will have a Hamas official in the rare interviews that they conduct in Western media. The first question immediately is like, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn yourself? Also, she is the fucking CEO of an aid organization that works in the Palestinian territory, a territory that is directly occupied at all times by the Israeli state. No aid is allowed into the Gaza Strip without the go-ahead of the Israeli officials. It is that simple.